Good evening, members of council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, May 1st, 2017 to order. We will begin by the singing of the national anthem. I would ask all to rise. Councillor Pat to lead us. Thank you. O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy Son's command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you, Councillor Papp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We now move to the agenda. It has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Ribiak, that be it resolved the agenda for the May 1st, 2017 meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Colleagues, I will momentarily, once the agenda is adopted, claim some conflicts of interest on 9.1 and then some bylaws. 9.1 is the resolutions arising from the committee of the P&P meeting, priorities and policy. So I would ask that we move item 9.1, which is the entire recommendations from P&P, to just before presentation and consideration of bylaws. So between 13 and 14, if we would move 9.1 there. And if I might have if you're agreeable, I might have a motion to do so. Moved by Councillor Papp and seconded by Councillor Kersey. Thank you very much. So to move 9.1 immediately before bylaws. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. So the amendment carries. And now to the motion as amended. Are there any other changes? There being none. I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. As amended. Next, we move to, here we go, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. I might as well go right into it. So I made a little scorecard here. I have a few items that I have some conflicts of interest regarding, I don't know how you want me to deal with this, Madam Clerk and colleagues. There are 3 items under P&P and therefore 3 bylaws. So under policy and priorities, item number 4 and also bylaw 3868 is relating to the rezoning, etc. of the former fire hall. I'm in a conflict of interest because I own property in the circulation area. The next item is item 6 under P&P and bylaw 3873, which is listed as number 9 on the bylaw list. I'm in a conflict because I own property. It's my personal property that's right across the street, so I'm in the circulation area as well. That's United Church in Fenwick. And then the final item is the P&P resolution or recommendation number 5, which is bylaw 3872, which is listed as number 8. I'm in a conflict there because the applicant was doing work on my home when he made the application. Are there any other conflicts of interest? Sorry to confuse you. I'm sure the clerk will have it all outlined. Okay, there are no further conflicts, and I'll make sure that I get that note to the clerk and double check that. Next on the agenda is presentations. We have some staff members with us who are going to present exceptional customer service, interdepartmental team. Can you perhaps introduce the staff and invite them or is it Ms. Weens is the coach? So maybe,
Barb's the coach, so maybe I'll
Ms. Weens,
separate.
perhaps, can we turn to you and come up, please, to the podium and introduce the team?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. This is the interdepartmental team on exceptional customer service. We have Charlotte, Belinda, and Rose from the clerk's department. There are two other members who can't be with us this evening. One is Dan Cooper from Public Works and Paula Park from the Fire Services. If I could ask the clerk to turn on the projector,
Yes, as soon as I finish moving this item.
then we'll get started. Thanks.
I can't get into this.
Just as background, certainly we know that customer service is definitely a priority of council and is one of your strategic objectives. This team is a continuation of a team that was in existence the previous year, so this team has got some life to it. And we feel that there's still some work to be done, and we want to be able to carry on next year with some other initiatives as it relates to customer service. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the team, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to our presentation tonight. The topic we were given was how might you provide exceptional customer service. Our team leader was Barb Weems, who was crucial at keeping us on track and giving us proper direction. You stole my thunder by already introducing everybody, so we'll keep going. I have to go back. No, one more.
Go back.
There we go.
Okay, sorry.
As a team, we created a poster board. I believe you have copies with you as well as the board, which I think is right in front here.
Down here, yeah.
There's 4 of those that were made. They will be placed at our Tice Road location, the arena, one upstairs at Town Hall and one downstairs at Town Hall. The board depicts standards that the town strives to meet with each and every customer, both internal and external. To treat people with dignity and respect and responding to telephone inquiries within a timely manner are just a couple of standards that are on the list. On the right side of the screen, as well as the pamphlets that you have in front of you as well, is the brochure that we created. These were distributed to all staff at our all-staff meeting. Throughout this presentation, we will go through the brochure as well. We created an acrostic poem using the word Pelham to show some strategies in achieving exceptional customer service. Politely ask and understand customers' needs, engage customer with personalized welcome, listen and empathize with customers' concerns, help provide a solution for the customer, always manage expectations, and maintain a positive attitude.
So when we started working on this endeavor, we asked ourselves, what are our customers' wants and needs? And we spent some time researching that and looking specifically into what the needs are of customers of government and municipalities. I won't list them all, but I will highlight a few. So our customers want to be treated with respect. They want to have their lives made easier. Accuracy, speed, for us to be professional and courteous. And they also want a minimal number of transfers from person to person. So what is customer service? Customer service is the town's ability to supply our customers' needs and expectations. Something that we kept in mind is that our customers are internal and external. So some of us deal with the public on a regular basis, but many of us deal with customers that are internal and within other departments in the municipality. And how we treat one another affects how we treat those who are outside. We communicate value to our customers when we meet their expectations in a timely and professional manner, and we provide customer service in our everyday interactions with residents and those with whom we work. So to summarize, customer service is putting people first, it's citizen engagement, And it's really asking that question that we see on the front of our webpage every time we go there, which is, how might we help you? So on top of this, we did take some time to look at how to deal with difficult customers, because in reality, that's something that most people encounter at some point in time. And the tips that we included to give to staff was to remain calm, not to take it personally, use your best listening skills, actively sympathize, apologize gracefully, find a solution, and if you need to, take a few minutes on your own just to calm yourself down. The other tips that we have for calming the difficult customer is to find out what's going on and determine the reason for the problem, to look at what caused the problem and identify the root cause, so not just deal with symptoms, but really get to the bottom of it, to ask what we can do to rectify the situation, to say something to restore the relationship, and then to think about what needs to be done and fix what needs to be fixed.
Hi everyone, as a group, we also worked on the 8 Sense of Customer Service. And I'm just going to list off a few. First one would be apathy. That would be like lack of interest. Somebody comes to the front counter and you're kind of brushing them off. That's, treating it as unimportant. Coldness, being unfriendly. These, I think you guys, they're all in the brochure. The whole 8 of them are in the brochure, so you can read them, the rest of them. Next, we worked on building rapport with customers. And again, here are just a few. So to smile. Everyone likes to see a smiling face. It just makes things seem that much better. Your tone of voice. You can say the same thing and it can come off so differently depending on your tone. It's very important to be aware of this. Approachability. Be friendly and pleasant to deal with. Just makes things that much easier. And use their name. Makes them feel important. Again, these are all in your pamphlet provided to you. The next thing is rules of customer service. And again, I'm just going to read from the slide. Treat them with dignity and respect. Treat them fairly while complying with our policies and bylaw regulations. Ensure our services are accessible for all our customers. Respond to written correspondence within 72 hours. Respond to telephone correspondence within 48 hours. Identify yourself using our first names and department in which we work for. Provide our service in the most cost-effective and timely manner. I'm sorry, I'm blind. And again, these are provided in the pamphlet. So this concludes our presentation. And remember, customer service is an attitude, not a department. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Do members of council have any questions? Councillor Papp.
Well, thank you very much. The work that you do in this area is critical of how people have confidence, trust, and continue to look at us as an area in which we, as a public corporation, we're up to a higher scrutiny. I'm sure you understand that than even private corporations. One of the key successes of those that have implemented a very strategic type of customer services, they have an appeal process. If you know what I mean, not just find the root, but if a person is really that dissatisfied, regardless of how you try and forgive my long-windedness, if the good ones or the real successful ones will work something through with them to come to some sort of satisfactory, how do you say, mutual solution. Is that something that you are going to explore? Because I know there are times you could be at one end of the scale, they could be the other. Is there something of an appeal process that would allow them to do this? And I'll give you an example. One of the ones that's probably the most successful is Canadian Tire Financial Services. They work with products, they work with credit cards and that. Another municipal corporation that's done this, and the mayor's aware of this, is the City of Ottawa. People can get very frustrated and say, it was gobbledygook. You didn't give me the answer. So they have sort of, I hate to say it, like what they call a complaint department you can go to, and the person works it through. So is that something that you would possibly consider?
Ms. Weens?
Yes, certainly it is something that we've thought about and talked about. Today we actually met as a group. We have a few new members on the group
Good.
joining us this year. And so we talked about certainly next steps, and that is one of the things that we talked about is putting together a protocol and getting that in place in terms of dealing with that. And one of the other areas that we talked about was really to grow and build the internal customer relationship, because
Right.
that's part of our culture. And if we do that and build that, then it'll naturally happen to our external customers as well.
Okay.
Good, thanks, that's great. Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Thank you for the question. Councillor Ribbiak and then Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thank you to the group for really excellent presentation. We councillors, I guess, are a kind of complaint department of our own, because people in the town will come to us with the complaints that they have about the town. So we can have some insight into some of the issues. So let me share a couple of them with you, and I'll trust that part of your mandate is to take this feedback and
In
maybe.
a cursory way, right?
In a
Not-
cursory way.
Not specifics.
It will
Don't
not
tell
be
them the one
specific.
about me.
No, your name will not come into this, Mr. Mayor. Rest assured. There are two. One is, and you noted it within the presentation, and that is that you want telephone correspondence responded to within 48 hours. One of the most frequent complaints that I get when people call and say, what's going on in the town, can you do something for me? I call and nobody answers.
Right.
Now, I don't know how true that is. People get to be a little hyperbolic when they're upset about something. But I think that one of the easy things that we might be able to tackle from the outset is some sort of protocol that insists that telephone calls get answered by everybody throughout the organization if they get them regardless of who they are. That I think would go a long way. And the second issue is also with regard to telephones, but I don't know that that you can do much more than carry this issue for me. You didn't create it. One of the difficulties that people have is they don't know who to call.
Right.
And if they go onto our website and they ask, what can we do for you today? They ask staff directory, they don't get a staff directory. There is a staff directory. I've learned how to get it. You have to go into the council page, and then you have to look on the side, and you have to find the staff, and eventually you get to where there's a staff directory. But I would suggest that most people looking to find who it is that they need to address can't find that person. So by the time they get to making a phone call, they are already pretty high on the thermostat with regard to temperature. So if you could fix that one, I think it would also go a long way to helping service. Excellent presentation, exactly the right subject. Thank you very much for what you've done. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Did you want to comment? I saw,
I was just
Belinda.
thinking about what you said today. We had our conversation this afternoon in our meeting, and we were talking about, people coming to us with questions and may not being able to have those answers right away, but at least contacting them within that 48-hour period to say that we've got your message, we're working on that, we haven't forgotten about you, we will get back to you. So we're trying to figure out a way to get that around, and
Great.
something we're gonna work on as well.
Get
Okay.
the staff directory in there,
And
too.
that.
Yeah, please.
Great, thank you. And I think Mr. McDonald heard you about the staff directory. No doubt we'll look into that as well. Councillor Kersey.
Mayor, through you. Great job, guys. Excellent. A lot of thought went into this process, I can see. I do have a question. The corporate world is obsessed with customer service more and more each year. And one of the things that I've noticed they've instituted is a means of providing metrics to their customer service. They'll develop a survey, and if you go to this website and answer this, your name will be entered into a draw, and how many times have we all experienced that? Have you given any thought to metrics? Because out of metrics, we can grow and we can learn. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Meeting today.
If I may, this was something we spoke about specifically in our meeting today, in terms of determining our next steps and our direction for this coming year. And we do have some things that we're looking into in terms of surveys, and we are specifically focused on what we can measure, how we can start to really evaluate the levels of customer service that are being attained, and so then how we can figure out what we need to target in order to improve.
Bravo.
Okay,
Wonderful.
great. Thank you. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just building on what's been said here, are there any tools that we can provide for you to make this customer service job any easier? We're counting on you as human resources, but is there any tools, are there any things that we can do to make your job easier in providing this customer service?
Thank you.
Something that perhaps can be thought about in the future as well, like there's intangibles, which is the values that you bring forward, and there are tangibles that may help you to bring that forward. It's just something to think about.
Well, like Councillor
Thank you,
Jack said,
Councillor.
you hear a lot of what's going on, before we do. So always feel free to pass that along to us as a team, and that we can work on those things and see how we can better those for the residents as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
I heard, as Councillor Ribbiak did, I've heard people say, I can't get through to anybody on the phone. Is our phone service adequate? This is one of the things I'm looking at as tools. Are the tools we're providing for you enough to make you, or to let you do your job properly?
Right. I believe right now when you call the front desk, you get options. So you can go right to whoever you need to speak to, their extension. After a while, if you hit 0, it goes to the 2 at the front. If it's not answered there, if they're with customers, it then comes to me. So there is another step. It's not just not answered, it goes to voicemail. It comes to me as well. If I'm at my desk, I always answer the phone as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just, like I said, if there's anything we could do to make your job easier, please tell us.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and no doubt they'll take that in consideration. Councillor King.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to go on and on about this telephone thing, but I think that is one of the biggest obstacles that I hear on a regular basis. And personally, if I don't take the time to go to the website to check somebody's extension, then I have to listen to the whole thing. And the other day I was calling here and I was too lazy to go to the website first. And I just thought, how does the general public call here and listen to all of these options of, well, you press this for that person and so on and so forth, when they don't even know who it is they really need to talk to in the first place? And I think that's a great deal of the frustration. We hear it over and over again that people never get to talk to a real person. I recently had an experience personally that I had to contact another municipality, and that was the one thing that I was impressed with, was that when I called there, I actually spoke to a person who then directed me to the party I needed to speak to. So I do think it's an area that we need to address. But thank you so much for your presentation. Obviously, you've put a lot of work into it and a lot of thought. So good luck with going forward. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor King. Anyone else? I just building on the comments from council, I do want to say thank you very much for putting this together. I didn't notice that it was I forget what it's called, but that it starts with the letters. That's why I was shocked when you're going through it, but very creative. And also outlining in a package what's expected, etc. I guess question is, what was the response from staff, or when you presented it to the all staff meeting? Is there somebody that can speak to that? Perhaps Ms. Weens or?
Generally, it was positive feedback. All staff got a copy of the brochure. When we presented it to the all-staff meeting, we had a very similar presentation. We also had like a little crossword puzzle that they could do, and all the clues were in the presentation, and so we had a draw in terms of a prize for that crossword puzzle as well, in terms of a way of engaging staff. To roll this out and keep it going and keeping it live is also to, we want to work with Paula and Nicole to make sure that all new hires get the same kind of training, and they get the customer service training, because then it becomes part of our culture. And so we've talked about that, and then through the work that we want to do this year, we see that we want to engage internal customers a lot more to understand where are the gaps in the service, and where is it working well, and what can we learn from those scenarios. So it is something that so far has been received positively by staff.
Okay.
Hope to keep that momentum going.
Thank you. The second question, I guess, is again building on the idea of sometimes we might know, I think is what Councillor King was saying, we understand the way the Pelham is set up and the departments and all that, but somebody else may not be. And invariably, when we look to other municipalities, well, why aren't they set up the way we're set up, right? So you talked about internal customers, and I think of somebody like Development Services. Well, if you want to change something or whatever, we had the conversation today, Ms. Weens, about building permits, and that you would actually go out to the community and get some feedback and that kind of thing. We're very good at that. Have you talked about the idea of going out directly to Joe Q public, the average person, and saying, okay, what was your experience like? How can we make it better, on a random way? Or how do you get that, those kind of pieces where you say, you know what, our directory isn't better? How do we know that? How do we, like a focus group of some sort? Have you thought about that?
We could do that. We also, and with Summerfest and Supper Market coming up in the summer, that's always a way to reach a lot of people. We could always go out there and do quick, people don't want to be bombarded, but we do quick random 2-3 questions.
Yeah.
Get the answers, find out, exactly where the issues may lie, and tackle that.
I think that's the key. So for council, we're interested in knowing, what our customers are thinking. And that's why they have surveys. I had it here, it's from a fast food place on the back of the receipt saying, have you filled out the survey? Can we adopt some of those kind of things as well? But I think, council's obviously very interested, and what's very impressive is that you're interested in it too, and you're spreading that interest throughout the staff. So on behalf of council, I want to thank you very much for your presentation and for your ongoing work, and we look forward to future updates. Thank you. Thanks so much. Now we move to report of Regional Councillor Beatty. Councillor Beatty is here. Thank you very much for joining us, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. The report is very brief. I unfortunately have been under the weather for 2 weeks, and I've gone through this. I have nothing else to add to the commentary, but I would like to point out that several councillors asked for reports the last time. There was a communication link, and I thank Councillor Durley for informing me that they didn't get a report. But I found out tonight that another councillor didn't get a report as well, so I'll act on that tomorrow. If through the clerk's office, I don't have a group thing for the councillors for their email and so on, so perhaps I can go through you for that tomorrow. That'd be great.
So I think the clerk's indicated if you're able to just send it to her, and then she can. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
shall do. And just for information, I think it involved a housing report, it involved the compensation for 2016, it involved the street beautification or whatever the incentive program for Highway 20. Councillor Kersey wanted that. And I think development charges for Councillor Durley, but I wasn't certain about that report. It's in the package anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
But I would like to point out to council that I had informed you earlier that at the last 2 meetings ago at the Niagara Escarpment Commission, there was a request from myself and Mr. Cambray, who's a citizen on that board from St. Catharines, for a report with regard to the Fawn Hill Cane. April came and went, and there was no report, so we brought that issue up. And as a result, there is a telephone conference meeting. I've asked the mayor I'll be getting a package tomorrow from his office in terms of the communication that's gone back and forth. I used that to get them to write the report in the first place. But action will happen. It's just that's 1 month later than what we had anticipated. I'm somewhat optimistic in this sense that during this round with the coordinated review, we've talked about, first of all, upgrading the mapping with regard to using modern GIS information, updating the mapping in terms of the nature of the designation of the 7 that are possible for escarpment properties. But in particular, we've also identified outliers, parts of the escarpment that aren't contiguous with the rest of the formation. And if we're doing that in that regard, then I think we're looking at things with more of a totality, but we should be doing that with the Fawn Hill Cane as well. So we'll give you progress in the future in terms of that. But that telephone conference does mean that a report will be coming in May in terms of that, I would assume.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor. I just wrote a note to the clerk asking her to ensure that she might follow up with Martha to arrange that. I'm not available to do it tomorrow for you, so if we can make sure that occurs and so that you're prepped for that phone call on Wednesday.
And there's no real update on regional council other than what the mayor's column has done this week. It was amazing show to watch again in terms of, unfortunately, in terms of when you can't even agree with any unanimity on the agenda for an evening, you know that you're off to a rough start. And some real frustration on the mayor's part, on the many members of council, in terms of the integrity commissioner, the on again, off again issue, the long period of time from when complaints have been reported on and being filed, et cetera. And I appreciate the mayor's actions in terms of trying to move that issue forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Beatty. It was many, many people working on that issue. You're one of them as well, so thank you for your work on that effort as well, and hopefully we can clear the cloud that's a bit over the region right now and carry on with appropriate business. So we look forward to those reports coming on the 18th or earlier of May. The 18th of May is our next council meeting. Councillor Papp, I see that you have some questions for Councillor
No,
Beatty or
just,
myself. Go ahead.
For either one of you, can you just explain what is the issue about the compensation with the medical officer of health?
Oh, an annual review.
Oh, okay, so it's just the annual
Out of the normal.
adjustment.
And that's worked through with the province in terms of
Right.
funding a portion of it or most of it.
Yeah, because times when I was in another role, that used to be controversial over how they were paid, how much they were paid, how much power and control they had. So that's all I asked.
Okay, thank you. The one that's interesting is in terms of public health and social services, there's two that are extremely interesting. I hope, Councillor Kersey, did you have a question on these? Sorry.
No,
Okay.
I'm listening.
The one is the Ontario Works caseload. It says bending the curve and trying to work. It's now appeared to, after a number of years, settled in on the curve in terms of the increases. And now, unfortunately, they almost have to do some workaround software with the data that's been provided and the computer system that's been provided by the province. So instead of doing something on the side of their desk, the region is working on some software that actually we're probably going to share with other municipalities with this responsibility to try to, in a better way, I guess, is to say, link up the needs of employers with those on Ontario Works. For whatever reason, the software currently isn't capable of doing that. That's been given on high from the province. And so regional staff are working on, like I said, this workaround to make that happen. So they're hopeful that as those positions come up and it's made known along with economic development and that office, that there can be a better matching, and then those that are most able to fulfill those roles can move into those roles quickly.
Add to that, the planning department's survey of employers in terms of actual identification on the ground, identification of how many employers are there, how many employees are employed in that area, et cetera.
Right.
I personally was surprised that was not fully fleshed out before the work that was undertaken this past year, and we had a very, very high percentage rate response to that, and it'll be done again on a door-to-door sort of knocking basis with I think the one area that they wanted to pursue as well was the home businesses in particular, that aren't quite as visible in terms of
The second item about the medical officers' annual report. So the long-term care homes, the medical officers at the long-term care homes come together and they pen a report that goes to regional council and beyond, talking about the issues that they're seeing. They are seeing, and I'm sure, Councillor Papp, through the years you have significant experience in those areas. They are seeing more acuity of healthcare cases. They are seeing more cognitive challenges with some of those in the long-term care homes. And then the other one is the stipend or the amount of money transferred from the province and assisted with that. As Councillor Papp indicated, it's peanuts. I tend to agree with you. So on that point, I think the committee asked for staff to put together a resolution that council can adopt to try to lobby or encourage the provincial government to try to increase that daily amount that's given for care and for food and things like that. Councillor Papp.
Just quickly through the both of you, any further progress on the redevelopment of the 3 facilities?
I've not heard recently.
Yeah, there was no
No
update.
rush, I'm just curious.
There is no update given,
Yeah.
but they're still working on it.
Okay.
There was mention of it, and when the budget was finalized last week, there was mention of that as one of the items that does affect Niagara. I didn't see the specifics as to what dollar amount,
Okay.
et cetera. And I don't think they're at that stage yet in terms of making
No,
a
there,
decision
but
on that
it
side.
should be within the next 6 months or so, there should be some sort of activity reported.
My understanding is that there has been a conceptual business plan put together, and many interested parties, including myself. It will possibly have an impact on us too locally, just to see what happens in that whole area. Okay, thank you, just to
Okay, thank you.
inquire.
And just quickly, the final is the message in a bottle. Council will recall, we received a presentation from the Fawn Hill Lions Club about message in the bottle, so that was highlighted at the region and talked about by Chief Kevin Smith of EMS, and the other protocols that they use in addition to this one, so.
And I just found out a couple of days ago, I had made an inquiry on behalf of people who were involved locally with regard to both the medical officer of health and the chief of the ambulance service and so on. And I found out just recently from the spouse that communication did happen when I was away, so I was nice to hear that they followed
Yes.
through. Okay. And I should mention, by the way, just going back to the issue of the workload that the Ontario Works, former commissioner indicated, and I found this surprising, puzzling, that they estimate it's a 5 to 7 year lag after a recession before you actually start seeing the wave change in terms of employability.
And that's what we're finding. Good. Thank you very much, Councillor Beatty. I don't think there's anything else for Councillor Beatty from members of council. So we do have a resolution moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. The council received the May 1st, 2017 report submitted by Regional Councillor Beatty for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion is carried. Thanks again, Councillor Beatty. Take care. Take care of that cold. Now we move to adoption of minutes, and it has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Minutes of council of April 18th, 2017. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we have consent agenda items for to be considered in block. We have already, when we adopted the agenda, moved the recommendations arising. So 9.1, as we said earlier, will be dealt with immediately prior to the bylaws. And Councillor Ribbiak, you wanted to lift another item.
954, Mr. Mayor, Town of Perth East, regarding proposed changes to the building code.
Okay, thank you. Any others? There being none, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. 9.2, the minutes of the Policy and Priorities Committee of April 18th, 2017. Staff reports of routine nature for information or action. We have one, which is the Pelham celebrates Canada's 150th birthday with events, festivals, and programs, and the resolution be it resolved the council receive the concept report, how might we celebrate Canada's 150th birthday, and the staff report to council on the success of the events projects before the end of the year. We have information correspondence item. There are 6. One was lifted. The first, Niagara Central Dorothy Rungeling Airport, first quarterly report, 2017. A thank you from Pelham Cares is the second. A District School Board of Niagara Community Planning Partnership annual meeting that's coming up this month is the third. The fourth has been lifted. The fifth was the Town of Fort Erie resolution on April 10th regarding the Niagara South Hospital. Perhaps they were clairvoyant in the provincial budget. The next is the Township of Waynesville resolution dated April 21st regarding the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. And then we have committee minutes for information. The Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting of March 9th, the Pelham Summerfest Committee minutes of March 22nd and April 12th, and finally the Library Board minutes of March 22nd, 2017. Are there any questions or comments regarding any of those items? Councillor Ribbiak, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to offer some additional comments with regard to our quarterly report from the Niagara Central Dorothy Rungeling
Thank you.
Airport. There are 2 items that I just wanted to bring council up to speed on. In reading the report, I'm sure you saw that there's some significant work that needs to be done on runways and taxiways. So we are halfway through the work program that we set out. The main runway has been micro-milled, as has Alpha Taxiway, and we are delayed now waiting for appropriate weather in which to put a final coat onto the main runway. And as the report indicates, the secondary runway will remain closed. We'll be using part of it as a taxiway, but the engineering report has indicated that we probably shouldn't be using it for landings and takeoffs. It came as a surprise to us when we knew that there was deterioration occurring to our surfaces, and so we asked Golder Associates to come take a look, and the surprise was they didn't give us the schedule of when we should get to it, other than saying it should be now. We are taking care of those repairs within the resources and the budget that we have for this year, so we're not coming with an ask. The next step in this is to take a look at the secondary runway, and an engineering report may in fact result in an understanding that there may have to be some additional capital funds found, but that won't be till next year, and perhaps not even until such time as the region has made up its mind as to what it's going to do. So anyway, that's the status of the airport. It is operating continuously and safely, though it is a little restricted at the moment. So that's one of the two things I wanted to say. The other is, you've seen in the report as well, that we are to acknowledge the receipt of our grant from the federal government. And that's going to occur this Friday on May 5th at 10 o'clock. And I would certainly invite peers to come out and take a look at the airport and help us acknowledge the grant that we received from the feds. At the same time, or immediately afterwards, I guess, Accipiter is doing a grand opening to its new hangar at the airport, and that has, I think, some real significance for the airport and the region. So again, that might be worth coming out and taking a look if you have the time to do it. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and we appreciate your service on the commission on our behalf. Councillor Junkin?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the other councillor. Richard, with the closing of that secondary runway, is it longer or shorter than the one that's in operation now? Meaning, will that restrict the size of planes because that runway is closed, or won't affect that at all?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. No, the main runway is the longer runway, and the wider runway. It's 3,500 feet by 100 feet. The secondary runway, I think, is 2,700 feet long and only 50 feet wide. It's useful for some planes when the wind is blowing in a different direction, but by and large, most of the traffic uses the main runway. So we don't expect any serious loss of activity as a result of this. It may get a little complicated sometimes, but really we should be able to handle it just fine.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for your report. Any others on any of the other items? I did want to ask one item regarding the Canada celebrates the 150th birthday. Lots of festivals and lots of events coming up, which is outstanding. I heard something about a cycling race on July 2nd, and I didn't see it in the report. I don't know if Ms. Van Ravensway, if you're aware of that, or whether they're still in the process of working on that, or they're not going ahead with it. Do we know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have heard about it, although we have directed them to Public Works for their approvals. I can ask.
Okay, so I guess my point is these are only items or things organized by the town, not any of the other events and things.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, yes.
Okay.
There are many things going on in town.
Right.
And it's difficult to know all of them that are going on. So therefore, when we promote certain ones and not other ones, we try to incorporate our own if we're working with, if a association has asked us to assist with their project.
Okay, I guess I was thinking that this report was similar to the Christmas in Pelham, which is we include everybody's activities that are going on in the community. So are there any thoughts about that type of promotional for this, to include all of the town-related activities, but also other activities?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can do a call out, as we have in, with Christmas in Pelham. At that point, we can report back to council with findings.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to highlight for Pelham, for colleagues, here at council, one of the first activities is 50 days prior to Canada Day, and that residents and obviously council is invited to share in the official launch by attending a flag raising at Centennial Park in Fenwick. Council will recall that the Fenwick Lions gave that park to the township, I guess, of the day in 1967, and it was thought that that was an appropriate day to raise the flag 50 days out, 50 years later, to help celebrate. And I know we have at least one member of parliament coming, and maybe another. And this is immediately after an announcement of funding for the pool, which will happen that day as well at 11. So just highlight that for you. Anything further on the consent agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Ribbiak, you lifted one item, which was 954, and so it has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. That communication item 954, Perth, regarding the proposed change to the building code regarding septic systems, be endorsed and supported, and that it be circulated to those listed and to the township, to the town of Perth. Councillor, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Durley as well. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue that Perth brings to our attention is that the provincial government is asking, or is looking to amend the building code by including some additional scheduling of inspections and some additional classifications of septic systems. And what the town of Perth is saying essentially is that what the government is doing is offering a solution for which there is in fact no problem. We happen to have in our town quite a number of septic fields. I'm not aware that we have a problem. I think that the protocols in this area in any case are that it's the region that inspects those. So if anything, the region may be impacted by this. But even if the region is impacted by it, whatever additional costs of personnel and bureaucracy that this may call will impact us either as a town or as ratepayers or both. So in as much as I'm certainly not aware of any burning septic tank or septic system issues in this town, I haven't heard of any in the years that I've been here. I would suggest that we endorse and support Perth's position. I don't think we need any encouragement to have any further regulation or inspection where none is necessary. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Circulate, you indicate that the region is the overseeing the septic system, so perhaps we should circulate to local area municipalities and the region as well.
That would be a good idea, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, one of the whereases in the resolution states that the proposing a change requiring mandatory 5-year septic tank pump out, which, number one, increases administration. You're going to have to keep a schedule of where they are and how they are, if they're being done, and enforcement issues will become onerous, if not impossible. And
not odorous.
Odorless as well. And you lost my train of thought.
Sorry, Councillor.
It also is an added expense to the homeowner, because a lot of people who have the modern type septic systems don't need to have them pumped out every 5 years. It might be every 10 years. And in fact, if somebody needs it in 3 years, then they're going to do it. So this regulation, I think, is something that certainly is not needed. We need to be less regulated and more regulated. This is a homeowner issue, and I agree 100% with supporting this and telling the government that leave your own septic tanks alone. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durley. Any others to this, Councillor Junkin?
Being on a septic system or at the farm, I'd like to say that the councillor is indeed 100% correct that it is a Niagara Region responsibility. And in fact, if anyone in the region applies for a building permit, you have to have your septic system looked at by a health unit official. The sad thing there is that charge went from a mandatory $350 to $1,000 now to have someone come out and take a look inside your tank. But yes, this I myself don't see why it needs more regulation. It seems to be getting handled quite fine at the regional level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? Councillor Papp?
I do support our councillors, but I also am a little wary because there are still significant hot zones in the Niagara region. And as long as the mandatory or the regulatory body of the public health, and I won't identify them, those zones still exist. So until such point that as long as the homeowners understand what their responsibility is, including foreign homeowners.
Or cottage owners.
Or cottage owners, then as long as that is contained, then I'm fully supportive. We don't want to be regulated, but in some cases, the lack of regulations, quite honestly, could have resulted in some pretty disastrous situations. So as long as they keep pushing and give the power, I would say, to the public health in the sense that those that do not comply are made to comply. Because I hate to say it, those situations still exist.
Thank you, Councillor. I think, in fact, there is still a boil water advisory
Yes, there
in
is.
Niagara region in certain hotspots, as you indicated.
And this, yeah,
So your point's well taken. Councillor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick point. I think it's really useful and important to note that we know of those. That's further suggestion, I think, that what we've got going now is working.
You should know.
We should know, and it sounds like we do know, and that there's response to it. So, again, that would suggest that any further layer of regulation may not be necessary, because what we've got now seems to be working.
We're not in that area, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you, but I do know, it wouldn't hurt for us to know. It's public information. And where those areas are and what's happened.
Good. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of interest, I think, in this, some of these situations exist because years ago, nobody really cared about how much space you had, and the septic tanks are on lots that are much too small to handle that. And I think on a go-forward basis, that is never going to happen again. The regulations, as Councillor Junkin has stated, there are many conditions that you need to satisfy before you can even have a septic system anymore, and everything is much improved. So on a go-forward basis, I think that problem will never exist again. Where it is, it's historical, and it's because of actually neglect of administration during that time rather than, the public being there. So that's just a point of interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Without further ado, are we ready for calling the question? And this is a resolution from the town of Perth East. I misspoke earlier, so Perth East. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to reports from members of council. And I have a large report here. So I'll highlight just quickly some of the items. The first was very pleased and honored to participate with many members of the El Crosley and the rowing community in general as part of the commemoration of Emily Bertel's, what would have been her 18th birthday, and christening of 2 new rowing shells. You'll see from the photos there, a huge number of people there, very moving ceremony at the Flatwater Center, the Niagara Flatwater Center. Emily's motto, "Make every stroke count," I think is one that we can all keep in mind every day, whether it's rowing or whatever it is that we're doing, making every action count. You'll see that the 2 names of the shells there are Forever My Bow and Emily Rose, ROWS. Very moving ceremony, and congratulations to those that were involved in fundraising and the sponsorship of that as well. And may Emily ever remain in our thoughts when we think of rowing in Pelham. I had the honor of attending a Vimy Ridge 100th Anniversary Black Tie Gala that was held by the Lincoln Wallen Regiment, and that's why I wasn't able to be at the installation dinner for Fire Station Number 2, and very honored to join MP Chris Biddle and MPP Jim Bradley and Mayor Senzik at that special commemoration. The event included a description of preparations for the battle, which was very, very interesting, and reading of the names from those of Niagara who made the ultimate sacrifice in that battle as well, and that was very, very moving and heartening. The cadets impressed so many in the community that were there, parents, etc. Maybe it wasn't advertised as much, but it was certainly a great event when they did a Vimy commemoration at Veterans Park on the 9th of April. So I was honored to participate in that service, and thanks very much for the cadets for organizing that event. I did have the honor of representing the town and thanking our dedicated volunteers at the 2017 Ontario Bike Summit, which was held in Toronto, and answering some questions about what are some of the key things that one sees when one talks about cycling. How might we make our community more cyclable? What were successes? Obviously, the successes we've had is as a result of our very dedicated volunteers and very dedicated staff working in tandem with each other. And we were also reaffirmed in our Silver Bike Friendly Community Award, so that's great news. So we are still a silver, but working on that goal that Ottawa has. Very pleased to participate, and thanks very much to Councillor King and members of staff and members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for helping out at the annual extravaganza Easter egg hunt held on the Saturday before Easter. Huge numbers of participants in that, family, friends, children of all ages at the arena searching for those golden eggs and other eggs as well. So congratulations and thank you. Kudos to the Kinsmen for their charity home show that was held at the Pelham Arena from the 21st to the 23rd of April. A great event, and I've heard record numbers again, and very favorable in terms of what they included, which was certain times where there were displays of some of the vendors, so very well received. And we know that money that they raise goes to the community, and again, that's part of our permissive grant program that we have, allowing them to rent that space at a reduced cost so that then they can give back to the community. So it's a great partnership. Pleased to participate in the many community-minded individuals. I think it's more than 420 individuals that participated through the series of 3 days. I was only able to join on the Saturday morning to clean up Pelham and the number of, I think it was 67 bags of garbage that were collected, etc. So thanks very much to the Fabulous Fun with Lions for hosting an appreciation barbecue, and for Miss Van Ravensway for not leaving me down in a gully somewhere picking up various bits of garbage. Very pleased, along with Councillor Durley, Councillor Papp, to be there at the launch of the Fonthill Bandshell Concert Series, a great program. Again, apparently it's 25% of the acts are local, which is great, but they're also bringing acts from around the country. Looks like a great event, and there's a poster here, or a couple posters here at Town Hall. Thanks very much for Councillor Durley, members of staff, for being there at the 610 CKTB Tour of Niagara, so at the new Tim Hortons, talking about activities going on here in Pelham. Thanks to Dr. O'Hara for talking about Occipital Radar as he did. Mr. Bleach talking about basketball in Pelham. Mr. Allison was there, our MP, talking about activities in Pelham as well. And finally, along with Councillor Durley, I don't know if other members of council were there later on in the afternoon, but he was there at noon, and I was as well, to participate at the tail end of the walkthrough, as they call it, for former Fire Chief Jim Phelps, the memorial service that was held at Pleasant View Funeral Home just on Saturday. Always impressive to see the more than 100 firefighters from Pelham, from St. Catharines, and from around Niagara that were there to honor the significant dedication and service of Jim Phelps. So that is my report. Unless there's no questions, then I will, Councillor Junkin?
Yes, just a quick one. Do you have any highlights from your meeting with the Metrolinx? Any revelations there about how that's proceeding, coming to Niagara?
Thank you. Yes, I did attend a luncheon that was held, and it was the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Metrolinx. Is that the one you're alluding to? Yeah. And so there it is. Thank you. So Mr. Percy did talk about Niagara Rail Go Service and the Metrolinx plan, and this was hosted by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce on April 21st. It was interesting. I did have a chance to speak to him directly beforehand, asking how might we increase the service or get the service to Niagara quicker. He did indicate, as he indicated in his speech, that this is really working in partnership with CN, and you know, there's a bit of an opportunity for us, but it is their track. So he said, and to me personally, and then he also said it to all there, that a real way to encourage it would be to show the numbers as quickly as possible or as soon as possible. And he outlined that the way to do that would actually be with the weekend service that we're getting in the summer that's just starting up. It may have just started up this weekend or is coming soon. And encouraging people to fill those trains as much as possible, promote it, and that will give a key indication to say, wait a minute, there's something great happening here in Niagara, maybe we need to move the service a little bit ahead. There were questions about the Canada Summer Games, which you may have seen in, actually we didn't mention under Councillor Beatty's report, that there's a committee that's going to get working on the Canada Summer Games, but those are coming in 2021. The first trains are expected to come to St. Catharines in 2021, but what about Niagara Falls? Well, that's 2023. So, Grimsby in 2021, not even St. Catharines. So is there a way to expedite it? I think that's the next move that the region's going to make and try to plead that case, saying, look, we have all these people coming from all around the province and the country into the airport, use the GO train to get them down to Niagara, et cetera. So those are kind of the different ways in which we can advance it.
Okay.
So very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we have reports from staff. It's moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. Report regarding the final approval of Summersides Boulevard, and the motion is that Council receive the Department of Community Planning and Development report for information as pertains to file number 2016-19-01016 regarding the Summersides Boulevard subdivision, and the Council grant final approval to Summersides Boulevard subdivision. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, and we look forward to that work occurring and that roadway connecting as soon as possible, perhaps to alleviate traffic in other parts of the town. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. The next item, be it resolved, the Council receive the Public Works report, fleet maintenance needs, and the Council support the backfilling of the open fleet mechanic position. Questions or comments? Nothing to do with the backhoe, is it? Councillor Kersey. Sorry, I must have odd humor this evening. I apologize to everyone. Who was first? Councillor Kersey?
Councillor
Kersey and then Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a comment. Of course, I will support this in that we do have that need. I just wanted to comment on the comparison that was done and some of the things when we start looking at contracting out and whatever, that need to be taken into consideration when you do a cost comparison. In order to get a really true cost comparison, you need to take in things just beyond the immediately obvious costs. You also need to take into consideration the cost of keeping an inventory, the cost of providing housing for the employees, cost of it.
Physical plant? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean? Okay,
physical
thank you.
plant, heating it, all of those sort of things, cost of administrating, issuing POs, writing checks, all of those sort of things that are ancillary to the true operation of a mechanical shop, that when you go and try and contract out and compare to them, they build into their shop costs. And it's not truly reflected in the comparison. Although I do appreciate the detail that went into it and the work that went into it. The other interesting thing that kind of jumped out at me when I look at the little bar chart that was provided to us, where we truly, back in 2005, had no onboard mechanic. We were running about $135,000. If you go to the last 3 years and you add those 2 bars up, we're virtually at the same cost. I mean, I didn't physically figure that out, but it sure appears that we're probably still running, it's probably hand in glove in terms of it, except that these don't take into consideration all of those ancillary costs that I mentioned. So I would just hope that as we go forward and when we get down to truly looking at costing out or contracting out in other areas that we've discussed, that we do a very in-depth comparison in our spreadsheet. So other than that, I do think regardless, we're probably going to still need a mechanic. Even if we do contract out some of the bigger services, we still will have an in-house fleet that we probably still will need to provide some service for. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I too want to endorse this. I was going to refer in some depth to insight that I have as a result of responsibilities that I had at one time for a fleet of over 80 vehicles. And I had a mechanic who actually never touched the vehicles. He was entirely responsible for all of the administration, the scheduling of vehicles to go in for service, following up on reports of incidents, following up on driver's logs, following up on where parts were going to come from, a whole slew of things that were important from a managerial aspect. We contracted out the actual repair to a shop whose full-time job was keeping at least 2 or if not 3 of our vehicles daily in order to do all of the routine protocols. So the fact that we have a fleet mechanic for a fleet of approximately the same size who's doing that and working on the vehicles has got to be a pretty efficient individual. So I fully support and endorse that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Councilor Drewry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're getting more and more machinery, more and more vehicles added to our fleet and that as well. So, a comparison back to 2005 as opposed to now maybe isn't really an apples to apples comparison. However, it's the downtime that if you have to ship a piece of machinery out for 3 or 4 days rather than have a mechanic be there to work on it in a day or two, I think all of that is very important to us to make sure that we can keep our level of service up. So I fully agree that a full-time mechanic is a necessity, not a luxury. And I commend the guy that we did have who is doing a great job, and hope we can get somebody to fill his shoes, because it is a big job and an important job, and again, something that will keep our fleet going and keep our service level up. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Thank you very much, colleagues. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, and thanks to staff for putting together that comparison report, and we look forward to hearing the results of that, filling that position. So now we're dealing with 9.1, is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask that we, I don't know where that resolution is here. I apologize. I would ask that we deal with those, here it is. So it has been moved by Councillor, well, sorry, I would ask that we lift those items 4, 5, and 6 and deal with them separately. So those recommendations under the report. And that now it's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley, the other items that are in the report, if that makes any sense, or. I'm going to call the question on the recommendations 1 through 3, just under 9.1, Councillor Pass. 9.1, so 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And 7 and 8. So that's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley. Any comments on those?
No.
Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Now I'd ask Councillor Pop to take the chair to do 4, 5, and 6, and then those bylaws. And here's a cheat sheet on the bylaws. Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, so going back to item 9.1, there are still items 4, 5, and 6 dealing with the fire hall, the United Church, and De Vere's report. So I would need someone to move those. Councillor Durley, second. Councillor Kersey. Any comments, questions? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification with regard to what we're looking at. It's actually number 9 that deals with, I think, Church Street.
Well, the bylaw is number 9 under the bylaw.
This is in 9.1.
We got to deal with that first.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. I'm clear on that.
Yeah, so
Thank
we're
you.
just going to deal with the PMP
Yep.
report, those 3,
Yes.
and then we'll get to the bylaws.
Got it. Got it.
Okay?
Thank
So
you.
again, just to repeat that items 4, 6, 5, and 6 under PMP 9.1. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. The bylaws, madam. Okay, then down to item 14, we're going to deal with the bylaws with respect to item 4.
Can I just see the resolution sheets there?
Sure.
I can help you with them.
So what we'll deal with is specifically 4, 9, and 8. And it's moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Junkin, and we'll deal with just the ones that are affected due to the conflict. That item, bylaw number 3868, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 1136 is amended for lands located south of Welland Road, east of East Church Street, municipally known as 788 Welland Road, from residential village 1, RV1 to site-specific neighborhood commercial, NC 262 zone, with a holding provision, and to remove the holding provision from the lands municipally known as 792 Welland Road, Loom Investments Incorporated. Comments or questions? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Next bylaw we will deal with is bylaw number 8, being a bylaw 3872, to amend the zoning bylaw 1136, 1987, as amended for lands located south of Weber Road, Regional Road 29, west of Church Street, municipally known as 238 Church Street, from agricultural A to site-specific agricultural A278. Evie and Diana De Vere's. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor? And finally, we'll have the bylaw 3873, item number 9, being a bylaw to amending zoning bylaw 1136-987 as amended for lands located south of Canberra Road, west of Church Street, municipally known as 1050 Church Street, from institutional to site-specific residential village 1, RV1 279 zone. Trustees of the Fenwick United Church, 3873, and being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 1136 as amended for lands located south of Canberra Road, west of Church Street, municipally known as 1050 Church Street, from institutional to site-specific residential village 1. Trustees of the Fenwick United Church. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Call the mayor back in.
Thank you very much, Councillor Papp. Colleagues, it's now been moved by, I want to make sure I don't do the bylaws that are already been done, so that was
Yeah,
4.
they did.
You want these?
These three have been done. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So it has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration of the following bylaws, do now read it first, second, third time, and do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the following bylaws. Bylaw 3865, being a bylaw to accept a 1-foot reserves pursuant to the subdivision agreement with the Town of Pelham and Fawn Hill Gardens, Inc. in the village of East Fawn Hill. Bylaw 3866, being a bylaw to adopt an amendment to the official plan for the street. Is that Summersides? Okay, thank you. So it's bylaw 3866, being a bylaw to adopt an amendment to the official plan for the Town of Pelham Planning Area, amendment number 105 Highway 20 East and 1465 Station Street. Bylaw 3867, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw, is amended for lands located east of Station Street and north of Highway 20 East, municipally known as 105 Highway 20 East, from a site-specific neighborhood commercial NC 85 zone to a site-specific general commercial GC 275 zone with a holding provision H, and to a site-specific residential multiple 1 RM 1276 zone with a holding provision H, East Village Yards Limited. Number 5, bylaw 3869, being a bylaw to adopt an amendment to the official plan for the Town of Pelham Planning Area. Amendment number 4, 1732 Cream Street, Bernadette Mary Coyne. Bylaw number 6, 3870, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw as amended for lands located west of Cream Street and north of Tice Road, municipally known as 1732 Cream Street, from agricultural A zone to site-specific agricultural A 277 zone, Bernadette Mary Coyne. Number 7, bylaw 3870, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 3605, 2015, and to remove from title the development agreement between the Town of Pelham and Bernadette Mary Coyne in regards to 1732 Cream Street. Number 10, bylaw 3874, being a bylaw to appoint an emergency management control group for the Town of Pelham. And finally, number 11, bylaw 3875, being a bylaw to authorize the use of optical scanning vote tabulators and touchscreen vote tabulators at municipal elections, and to repeal bylaw 3473. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. All right, these papers are all out of order. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that since we do have an in-camera portion, that be it resolved, the council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following committee of the whole meeting scheduled for this evening. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Let's take a 3-minute break before we start committee. Thank you very much.